This is Asia's Farm to Fork 5 Good Questions podcast, bringing you insights and views from across Asia's food value chain. Now, for today's interview. Hi again, everybody. This is Duke Hip, host of Asia's Farm to Fork 5 Good Questions podcast, and we're very excited today to have a leader from the industry, food and ag industry, right here in Asia Pacific, Mr. Jens Hartmann, head of commercial operations Asia Pacific at Bayer Crop Science. Hi, Jens.
Duke, good evening. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, thanks for doing this. And in the spirit of the 5 good questions, if it's okay, we'll jump right in and have a discussion.
I think we just get going. Yes.
Sounds good. Well, for those not aware, today is a unique day. It's International Day for Biological Diversity, and may or may not know this, but this actually originally was launched in 1993 by the United Nations, and with very good intentions. The plan was then to really raise awareness around biodiversity issues that are affecting the world around us. And all those many years later, to fast forward, I'm sad to say that many of those issues really haven't gone away, and many have actually gotten worse. Just recently, the United Nations has announced that I think 80% of the targets of 8 SDGs are going to be undermined if we don't turn things around with respect to a lot of the biodiversity and ecosystem damage that's being done. So there's a lot of work to be done. That certainly continues. So the theme for this year is we're part of the solution. And I know, Jens, you and your team at Bayer Crop Science here in Asia Pacific take this issue very seriously, and also take a lot of great pride really in the work that Bayer is leading on this front. Maybe you could share a little bit about that work.
Yes, of course, with pleasure, Duke. And first of all, thank you very much for having me here and having us giving our thoughts to this topic, which is really, as you said, super important. And before I really go into what we do in that area, just to re-emphasize what you are saying, biodiversity is really under threat, no? Because we have, at the end of the day, I think roughly more than 1 million species which are actually facing extinction as a result of what we do, as a result of human activity. So it's super important that we raise this point. And of course, if we really look at what we do in terms of agriculture, the key driver for loss of biodiversity through ag is really in the area of land use changes. It's in the area of climate change, crop management practices, and pollution. Those are really the key drivers in agriculture impacting biodiversity. So on the other hand side, if you really see what we do in terms of ag, it fully relies on biodiversity. If we want to drive up yields, if we want to increase food production, we need to have biodiversity in ag. And there are actually many species across very important ecosystems, like healthy soils, like pollination, like pest control, and they are really super essential for food, feed, and for the overall fiber production. And maintaining this really diverse range of species allow us in agriculture really to be more resilient to stresses, as I said, to drive yield increases, to drive production, and including, of course, those which are caused by climatic change. Now, coming back to Duke, what you asked before, what are we really doing as Bayer? How do we address the topic of biodiversity in ag through our solutions, through our activities, and also through our thought leadership? Different points. Of course, first and foremost, really looking at the whole point of how do we develop innovative, sustainable solutions in the area of crop protection, in the area of seeds, in the area of overarchingly the integrated crop solutions. Now we support farmers, we support landowners, and we really try to overarchingly through our efforts in research and in development, and us being the market leader, also spending the highest amount of money in R&D overall, is to advance the science overall by asking ourselves all the time, how can we really, on the one hand side, achieve our food production goals, increase productivity, on the other hand side, really protect biodiversity in its entirety, to really help protecting forest, help having a sustainable vegetation management, and at the same time also really mitigate the threat of climate change. So that's really what we try to do as crop science, really acknowledging that biodiversity is on the one hand side under threat, and on the other hand side, as well, as I said before, really ag being a key impact on biodiversity overall through what we do day in and day out in agriculture.
Understood. Well, very, very thoughtful answer. And I think it leads me to another question I have for you, which is sort of a follow-up to that. You know, one of the talking about agriculture being, you know, one of the players that's impacting biodiversity. One area I know that traditional agriculture gets a lot of scrutiny on is around water. You know, and certainly with traditional agriculture, water use, and understandably so. I think the figure is something like 70% of all the world's water is going to agriculture, which is a staggering figure. So, but I know that's also not the full story. There's also some good things that are happening with respect to, as I mentioned, the modernization of agriculture with new technologies, and certainly with plant science innovations among that group that are helping to drive greater water efficiency with food production. And actually, as we said before, sort of being part of the solution, I guess, tying into the theme for this year with the biological diversity. So anything you can share on that front with water use and agriculture and some things that are happening?
Of course, Duke, and you're absolutely right. Look, ag, we are super water intensive, and we are actually, and I was astonished myself. Agriculture is responsible, it's said, for 70% of freshwater use overall. And to put this a little bit into context, to grow the food of a family of 4, it takes about 20,000 liters of water. And you just need to do the math here to realize that that this is heading into a problematic area, because on the one hand side, we need to increase productivity, we need to increase the production of food. On the other hand side, we have this topic on what agriculture does to overall water use, and to look at it from another area too. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. So one could say, well, that looks kind of okay, but then if you really drill deeper, only 2.5% of that is fresh water. So we need to really address this topic, because the maths don't work out over here. If you look at how much water is available, how much ag is actually utilizing, and how much ag would be actually need to utilize even more going forward to address all the challenges we have on with regard to food production and in increasing agriculture. So technology really plays an overarching role over here to address this. And if we look at crop science sustainability mission along different lines, be it on the one hand side subscribing to the SDG goals, which you mentioned before, Duke, on the other hand side also our endeavor to support smallholders, there are opportunities to address this. You can look at breeding techniques, you can look at choice of crops, where you purposefully look at less water using seeds or crops when it comes to choices. You can use digital tools which gives you better advices in order what to do in the season, how to grow your crop and how to maximize your water consumption. How to minimize your water consumption, how to maximize your efficiency. And last but not least, when we talk about ecosystems, when we talk about partnerships, of course, we have the opportunity as well to cooperate much more with value chain players and have irrigation companies or companies dealing in the area of water much more associated with us traditionally being more active in the area of crop protection and seeds. So many opportunities in that area. And again, similar to the topic I mentioned before on biodiversity overall, we need to work on this as agriculture because it is super water intensive. The resources are limited, and we want to produce more going forward. So we actually need to grow more with less. That's what it's boiling down to at the end, Duke.
Yeah. Understood completely. Well, I kind of pivoting a little bit from this topic, we've been talking a little bit about some of the challenges and respect to the day of today, biological diversity. Pivoting a little bit, before this conversation we're having now, we were talking a little bit about COVID-19, the pandemic, and you and I are both sitting here in Southeast Asia. We're going through another tough run right now. And I guess it was about a year ago this time that the pandemic really did take root, here in Asia. And it wasn't that long ago. Think back on some of the really heartbreaking stories that were taking place. Farmers were having to dump fresh fruits and vegetables on the side of the road, unable to make getting to market. And there were so many gaps in the food value chain that were really exacerbated and came to light during that really tough run at the beginning and not that long ago. And so I just wanted to tie that into something else that's happening later this year. The UN is having the 2021 Food System Summit, and it's becoming a topic that we're hearing more and more about. There are independent dialogues that are happening every day now, and a lot of momentum going into that big forum coming up later this year. If you had an opportunity to have a few minutes with some of the folks making that decision, the summit later this year, I wonder, what would you say as far as maybe some of the must-haves? Having again just come through the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of it's really the fragile nature of the food system here in Asia.
Good point, Duke. And I think it was a little bit, if you refer to last year, it was a little bit a wake-up call for us all. And I'm actually afraid that we are right now potentially going into the second year of similar kind of challenges we have. And it's just so super important that across the board we sit together and really try to address those points together, because last year really showed us where the fragility is, so to say, in the overarching food resilience area and what needs to be done. And if I would need to really have to pinpoint what are the key areas, it's for me very clear around the connectivity across borders. Obviously, in such a situation, each and every country has got first and foremost objectives, priorities to look after their own country, to look after their own people, but especially with ag being so interconnected in terms of inputs, in terms of supply chain, in terms of food exports. I think the connectivity across borders it's super important and needs to be ensured. Secondly, and I talked about this in the area of biodiversity and water before, it's the need for innovation. We really need to make sure that we keep on focusing on how can we modernize agriculture, how can we make our food system more resilient through innovative approaches. And last but not least, I think everything, it taught us completely last year that we need to be fast and we need to be impactful. So the whole area of speed and scale, I think, is really something that's taught us last year. And that's not necessarily only related to agriculture. I think that's related to all the different areas we needed to look at in order to address the COVID challenges. We need to think holistically. We need to think along across traditional borders or areas, and we just need to be fast and scale up fast. Otherwise, and especially as I said on the food system and resilience point of view, we're gonna lose out. Big time. So if I really as a second point look at it as us as an ag industry, looking at us and our like-minded players in agriculture, it's really all about working together to use our scale for good. I talked earlier on about the scalability and the impact piece. it's us needing to get the backing from all stakeholders on science and innovation, the trust in us that we are advancing purposefully and doing our bit to address the area of food resilience. It is the plea to all of us in the ag industry to be serious about sustainability and really drive our sustainability commitments, which we all make and in different parts, in different area of agriculture. And last but not least, together with the stakeholders, pursue multilateral engagements, starting with us as CropLife Asia, as partners, but then of course going even further. I mentioned before with players in the ecosystems, in the value chain, but then even looking at private-public partnerships and see how can we jointly address this? Because as I said, we all learned our lessons last year, and I'm afraid that the way it looks right now, looking at Southeast Asia, looking at South Asia, we are getting into the major agricultural season right now, into the main productive season, and we need to act fast. Otherwise, we will face challenges again, Duke.
No, it's very true. It's a little bit scary to think about, but you're right. We're entering that time now. So the common thread through all of that is the farmer, which you just alluded to there at the end, in particular. And in Asia, it's such a unique story. You've got I think it says 85% of the world's smallholders are right here in Asia, and all the unique challenges that go with that. So many challenges, as I said, that go with it: landholder rights issues, access to finance, availability of technology, quality inputs, a host of challenges that they face. If you think about that and you give some thought to what they're facing every day, are there some things that we should be doing better as far as the stakeholders working together in Asia Pacific to really support those smallholders in a more impactful way, you would suggest?
Yeah, and perhaps I start with an example from our company, actually, what we did last year when more or less around this time, a bit earlier, the pandemic started to hit ag. We really asked ourselves, what are the critical areas now? Where do we need to act as the leading ag company in here in Asia Pacific? And we said, well, look, what are the key challenges the farmer is facing right now at that situation? It was all about access to seed. It was about access to crop protection product. It was getting access to information on how, under these very difficult circumstances, to still do what their livelihood is all about, meaning growing crops and producing food. So we were very, very active in terms of care packages, which we distributed across India and Southeast Asia in the key crops. We were active in Africa and also in Latin America to really give them, so to say, the initial startup kit to make sure that there isn't going to be any break in the food system, so to say. We contributed something like 2 million of those kits to smallholders, and that really helped them to get through the initial shock of COVID and the respective challenges they were facing. Now, looking at the lessons learned there and how can we take that forward, it's really, as I said before, it's about the multi-partnership agreements, the working together along the value chains. We need to work with governments. We need to work with NGO. We need to work with local organizations, really to jointly address this challenge and make sure that those smallholders who produce the majority of food actually globally are the ones who are not left behind and are able to grow their crops and produce food. And I'm personally super proud and also very pleased to recommit or reconfirm our commitment. We have as one of our 3 sustainability goals for crop science until 2030 communicated broadly that we want to empower 100 million smallholders by 2030 through what I talked before, innovative solutions, through advisory, through digital, and specifically in times right now, such as in COVID, it's the opportunity really to build bridges and show what we can really do as organizations, as an industry to address those challenges. So that's really, Duke, how I would look at it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think you touched on so many parts that are so critical, enabling farmers, making sure they have what they need to grow the food that we depend on. It's not an easy job. Well, we've come to the near the end here. We've come to the fifth and final question, and with this one, we usually line it up a little bit, because by this point we've talked about a lot of challenges, a lot of the circumstances that are very challenging and difficult for our region, but to kind of pivot a little bit and think about the reality is of course there are also just as many opportunities and good things that are happening, and some indications that are positive. So in that spirit, if you would mind looking ahead a little bit, we could say maybe 10 or so years into the future, if you're looking in the crystal ball, is there something you would say that you would predict, or not predict, say we're going to get pretty close to something that's going to be a big step forward for Asia and food and ag that you might think will be realized by then?
Yeah, if you ask me crystal ball, and I would actually say it's not really a crystal ball required for this. I would really say that the key to future of farming in Asia Pacific, and actually not in Asia Pacific only, across the world, is going to be digital. Because digital is really I would say, at the sweet spot of, on the one hand side, having your innovative solutions, and I talked about crop protection and seeds before. On the other hand side, you have the whole area of data, giving you more the guided decisions, so to say, how to do agriculture. And last but not least, it really provides you with the opportunity to address the challenge of reach and scalability, of how do we manage to get to the smallholder farmers, to as many as we can, where we all as organizations in the past realize that there is a challenge of scalability, and that we are just not able to have a broad impact due to the nature of the fragmentation our limitation to broaden our organization as much as we wanted to. So really, for me, the game changer in ag across the geography over here in Asia Pacific is digital, addressing the challenges. On the other hand side, also providing fantastic new opportunities for a changing farming community. We are all aware of the aging farming dynamics, and the challenge of us needing to also make farming more attractive and more interesting for a completely different generation being interested in going to farming. And as I said before, that's for me the super enabler, so to say, to address everything what we talked about before. We talked about the challenges of biodiversity. In biodiversity, we talked about the challenges in water consumption. We talked about the challenges during situations such as we have in COVID right now. And digital will be a key enabler to address those. And us as a company, we have over the last year and a half made substantial progress also with regard to our strategic agenda in that area. We formed a digital incubator. We are looking at testing innovative new digital capabilities to address really the key pain points of smallholder farmers. We look at unique cooperations with players along the value chain who have like-minded objectives in addressing smallholder needs. So I really think that digital is going to be the answer, and I'm also very, very confident that key companies being active in the field, being active in innovation, being serious about the sustainability are going to drive this agenda forward very strongly.
Well, thank you for that. And by the way, you're not alone. As you were talking about that, I'm just remembering we're hearing so much more about the role of digital technology in agriculture coming up in the Food System Summit. These mini dialogues are taking place. It keeps coming up again and again, and there's no question. There's momentum. Yeah, it's a huge role that'll be played in the near future. Yeah. Well, Jens, thank you very much for doing this again. And you're officially off the 5 Good Questions hot seat. You've made it, and we thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much, Duke. Thank you. All the very best.
Thanks, Jens. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you did, please rate, review, and subscribe. We look forward to bringing you another 5 Good Questions interview